welcome in to kick off the tip-off with Noah and Gage. Covering the first round of the draft, Gage, it was an exciting night. Some guys fell that we kind of thought might fall, and some guys got drafted that we thought might be some second-rounders there. Um, Very interesting stuff last night. A trade that kind of stood out to me there at the beginning was the Browns and the Jags. And I think both teams kind of benefited from that. I think Jacksonville stood out and they went and got a guy that they needed, kind of like a face of a franchise guy, in my opinion. Able to, let's say, get a playmaker. And now Trevor Lawrence, I mean, he's got Brian Thomas Jr., he's got, now he's got Travis Hunter. So we're looking at a team that got a lot better. And then you look at the Browns, who ended up getting a top of the line defensive lineman, and they added some draft capital there, and were able to um, kind of rejuice because they knew they were more than one piece away from being like a prolific team in the NFL. Anything you have that stood out to you in that trade itself?
Yeah, ultimately, I mean, the Browns kind of forced their hand to do that trade because of the Deshaun Watson stuff that happened. All that you gave up, you kind of had to gain some draft capital and start building out a roster that, for as many times if they've had a high pick, it's a bad roster. I mean, let's be honest, and that's why they were picking two to start this. They ultimately end up passing on Travis Hunter and Abdul Carter to trade down and take who at the time I believe and guess would be the best player on their board, Mason Graham, who actually looks like you a little bit. I thought maybe they would trade down and take Genty because they didn't necessarily have a great running back. Jerome Ford, they didn't bring back Nick Chubb. So I understand, and from their perspective, I actually agree with them trading down. The other side of this, Jacksonville coming up from 5-2, depending on who you ask, this is either a slam dunk home run, great trade. Like I said it before yesterday, let your nuts hang a little bit, James Gladstone. You're coming over. Kind of the reasoning that people are out on this trade up is it's a fresh GM with a fresh coach. You don't necessarily know your roster as well as what you think you do. And to give up that much draft capital in year one of your resume to come up and get a guy who, I mean, let's face it, you and I both believe he's good, but there are some concerns and question marks in terms of how long can he play both sides, at what level can he play both sides in the NFL. So from that perspective, I completely understand why people were kind of flaming Jacksonville. Us, and I think you agree with me the way that you just talked about it, I thought this was a great trade. I would never be mad at a team for taking a swing and trading up and trading a future first-round pick to get who is deemed the best player in the draft. Cam Ward was not the best player in this draft, but he goes one because of quarterback. And I, honest to God, believe 5 years down the line, we look back at this and say that was a complete mistake by the Tennessee Titans. I really do. Because for that pick to be justified and not be Travis Hunter if he truly pans out, or Abdul Carter if he every year is an 8+ sack guy, it has to be above average from Cam Ward. And consistently, year in, year out, you're talking about a Titans team that would have to be in the hunt for the playoffs or winning a division, things like that. So I actually like that a team in that division, Jacksonville, trades up and ultimately becomes a team that could win that division. Trevor Lawrence, Brian Thomas, Brenton Strange, who they're high on, Travis Hunter now. We know that Liam Cohen is a great offensive mind. We saw it there with Baker Mayfield and his time there with the Buccaneers. So ETN, Tank Bigsby, the offense is there. And then Travis Hunter obviously steps in as your automatic cornerback one. So some people hate it. I loved it. I understand both sides of it. So it really just comes down to what side people are on.
Well, yeah, and like you said there, I mean, Travis Hunter can play both ways, but you can also do it situationally. Like if you want him to be a prolific part of your offense, you can put him in on pass coverage downs to play cornerback. Or if you want him to be a more primarily defensive side of the ball player, go ahead and throw him on offense whenever you need a little boost during a game. So there's both sides of this, and like you said, I do think Travis Hunter and Abdul Carter were the two best players in this draft. And when you look at it, I mean, yeah, the Titans with Cam Ward was kind of we don't have a quarterback and we have no kind of like idea where we are in the quarterback situation. Take the best quarterback available, because obviously if you don't take Cam Ward at one, you have some teams below that are in quarterback look. Even the Browns themselves are kind of in some quarterback woes. So I do understand how that top, let's say, I kind of understood how the top 7 picks went, honestly. And then Tet, I do agree with there at 8 with the Panthers, but some people are hit or miss on that pick. I like everything all the way till 10. And the thing is, I like Loveland better than I liked Warren, in
Mhm.
my opinion. Just as a receiving tight end, as a playmaker tight end, I like Loveland better. I think he runs routes better. Tyler Warren falls 14 to the Colts, so there was some kind of question marks there of, man, why did Loveland go before Warren? I don't think that's the case in my opinion. I think in my thought I was kind of like, man, I can't believe the Bears went tight end, but we know with Ben Johnson taking over the Bears, he likes to run a lot of 12 personnel, so they were definitely in the market for a tight end from the start of it. But I do like the Loveland pick over Warren 10 to 14. What's your opinion on that?
So this is what I thought about this, right? It becomes this, especially after watching day 2 of the draft where they take Luther Burden. It's simply more chess pieces for Ben Johnson to use in this offense. We saw kind of his scheme and the way that he used every single person on that Detroit Lions offense, including Dan Skipper, an offensive tackle who would go out for passes sometimes. This guy is an offensive mastermind. So the fact that their first 2 picks in the draft go to the offensive side of the ball, both skill player positions, doesn't shock me at all. And I think about this too. I think after 2 years, especially maybe not this year, depending on the role that he plays, things like that, Colson Loveland is ultimately a better player than Cole Kmet. He will step in and be your tight end 1 in the future, and I think relatively quick. But like you mentioned, the personnel sets that they run out, you'll see some 2 tight end sets. And let's be honest here, and I'm glad you brought it up because I was going to talk about it anyway. There is no more excuses. Caleb Williams has to shine this year. There's absolutely, if he does not have a great year, I mean, we're going to be sitting here talking about the same way that we're looking at Anthony Richardson this year. Hey, is it time to move off quick with this guy? Because look at the surrounding roster. You completely revamp the O-line. The O-line is fixed. The defense has always been stingy and good. Rome Odunze is a top 10 draft capital guy. DJ Moore in that trade. Now Luther Burden, Loveland, Kmet. The list just goes on, and I'm sure they'll draft a running back in this draft class to pair with Swift. So there's no more waiting around. Your rookie season was a wash. We get it. The coaching staff wasn't good, but guess what? Now you got what was my favorite hire of that coaching cycle, and is your guy, an offensive mastermind. This is what you need. So I like the Bears pick at 10. I don't think when Banks went 9, I felt like, if he was there, maybe they just go overkill on the offensive line and take him, plug and play left tackle. But once he was gone, I was open to, Loveland was my tight end 1 as well. I didn't mind it at all.
Yeah, and I think Loveland fits kind of the Laporta build, in my opinion. Kind of a guy you can come out and put in the slot, and he's able to get himself open with routes. Where I think Warren might be a better down technique, like a blocking tight end, more of a George Kittle-esque, in my opinion. So when you look at that, you look how that shaped up those first 10 picks. San Fran, they stay pretty with what they usually do. They take an edge rusher in Michael Williams from Georgia, which I thought was a solid pick. Nothing against it, but nothing for it. I think they kind of needed to make a bang, but they didn't. But I still think Michael Williams is a solid pick there.
Could be completely boom or bust, Noah. That's kind of what I've read, what I've heard about him. This could be a pick where it's like, that's unbelievable talent at 11, or this could be something where 3 years from now he's looking like a potential, just a rotational edge piece. I actually thought that Jalen Walker was going to be the pick there simply because they lost Drake Greenlaw as well this offseason, and with Walker you can kind of get that hybrid mix of edge / linebacker.
Yeah, and something I kind of taken notice this year. Your offensive line, edge rushers, and your defensive tackles. Those have been pretty. When a team is afraid to swing big and miss, that's usually where they're going. And I think that's what San Fran did. Not saying that Williams wasn't a top 15 player in this draft talent wise, but just looking in the sense of like, hey, if he becomes a rotational piece, we didn't mess up that bad because he can still be a quality player on our team. Rolling at 12, I actually like the pick for the Cowboys and Tyler Booker. You replace your All-Pro guard in can't even think of the last name.
Zach Martin.
Help me out there. Zach Martin. I want to say Smith for some reason, but Zach Martin. You replace him, and then you take Booker. I do think if Tet was on the board there at 12, I think they would have went Tet. But like you said, sometimes when the board falls, and just how it gets down to you, you just go with what you need and kind of your highest player on the board. And I think that's what happened with Tyler Booker from Alabama.
Yeah,
at 12.
I was a fan of this, like you said. I think Tetero McMillan was their guy. Once he was gone, I thought this was kind of a perfect pivot situation, especially with Michael Williams. I would have to imagine their favorite edge piece gone too. You ultimately are still building the Great Wall of Tyler Smith, Tyler Guyton, and I believe there's another Tyler on that offensive line somewhere. And this is, I believe, 3 straight years in a row that Dallas has invested their first round pick into the offensive line. So protecting Dak, obviously, a guy that you really like. I really thought that they may have went Matthew Golden, Emeka Ibuka, who's one of my favorite receivers in this draft, but not a sexy pick by any means, but a damn good pick because Tyler Booker's going to step in, play your left guard or right guard spot, and play it at a very high level for 8 to 10 years. Hopefully more, barring no injury concerns. And like you said, day one, played at a very high level. So it's not sexy, it's not beautiful, it's not fun. It's similar to the Seahawks pick with Gray Zabel, but I actually think that Booker is better than him just because it's that SEC caliber of play. Jumping ahead a little bit, probably not going to talk about this much. Just Gray Zabel, North Dakota State, phenomenal football franchise for the college level, but there's obvious concerns about the talent that you're playing, level of play, stuff like that. So I'm not hating on Gray Zabel. It's just I definitely preferred Booker. He was my offensive guard one, I guess.
Yeah. When you're going against SEC defensive tackles every week and you're making it pretty well known that you're winning in the trenches, it's hard to ever take someone from a smaller college whenever they're playing against the best talent in college football, because we all know the SEC and I guess the Big Ten are pretty dominant in those things, and it's something you saw there. In the beginning, you have a lot of the SEC and Big Ten players being selected early. Look at Kenneth Grant with the Dolphins. Didn't mind that pick. Gage, are you still on that as well?
I thought it was a little bit of a reach, but I understand it in terms of, it's hard to get flashy and pick maybe Jahdae Barron a corner or something like that. You and I have talked about it. The Dolphins are on watch for the first overall pick next year. I think they're going to be absolutely terrible. I don't agree with this pick. I think you could have went a couple other different ways, but I get it. It's a relatively safe pick. You're hoping that he can just plug and play nose tackle, be a really good run stuffer from day one, and hopefully get some pass rushing tendencies from him and production in terms of pass rush. But I don't really have much to say about the Dolphins, man. They're on watch to be picking very high next year in Pittsburgh, where the draft is. They are not in for a good year, I feel like.
Yeah, and I think that was a thing, though, too. You don't take not saying that they're definitely in rebuild mode, but our opinion, they are. So when you just go ahead and take that a solid piece, you're going to have them for a few years in your system, no matter what regime comes in to take over the Dolphins, because I think they will chop house. What regime takes over, Kenneth Grant will fit in most of those situations. Rolling over to Indianapolis with the Colts, I think everybody knew for a long time they were taking Tyler Warren. I think that was like one of the first things out before the draft talks even started, was Indianapolis would be the place that Tyler Warren fell. He did. I don't really have anything to say. It's a position they needed. We were both bigger on Loveland, but he goes early, and Tyler Warren falls to the Colts, and I think they're happy with that selection as well. Just don't know. He might be the best quarterback on that roster this year, in my opinion.
Yeah, no doubt. I just real quick. I'm on record being a Tyler Warren hater, so I guess if I'll say something positive about him this episode. For a quarterback who really struggles with accuracy in Anthony Richardson, however many games he even starts next year, you saw a majority of the highlights that they showed for Tyler Warren. He's a very good contested catch tight end prospect. He's 6'6", 2 something, big catch radius. So getting a guy like that for a quarterback who at times can be pretty inaccurate, I completely understand. I just worry about how many contested catches are you making at the NFL level with those caliber safeties and things like that. So no, actually, before we get into like the Steelers with the passing on Shadur, and then Giants, Jackson Dart, which I know you're kind of dying to talk about, real quick, let's just kind of rapid fire these. What was your thoughts on Emeka Ibuka to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers? Because I absolutely love the player, and I I don't hate the draft pick at all, but this one was just pretty shocking to me.
I'm just going to tell you right now, Gage, and we're in a fantasy league together. Baker Mayfield will be my quarterback in every fantasy league we play.
That'd be a
I
great
think
pick.
what they did here was realize that, hey, we're losing a little bit of our offensive mind in Cohen, right? So let's go get some more weapons. Mike Evans is close to the end of his tenure in the NFL. Unfortunately, Godwin, you never know after a knee injury. Will he be as explosive? Will he be that guy that is good for 5, 6 catches, 60 yards every game? Those are things that we don't know. McMillan came on late last season, and he seemed to be like a top target for Baker. And what they did, they provided another weapon to get on the field with Baker because, like you said, you have a couple guys, and this kind of allows Mike Evans too. Maybe some formations you don't even see Mike Evans play in this year because Evans can take a break because there are a lot of weapons on the field at all times. You have Bucky Irving, who's in my opinion, I think your opinion will, one of the better backs in the league. So you have weapons, whether it be offensive, defensive. You have weapons, or offensive receiver or running back. You have weapons everywhere. So, like you said, I think there could have been other places the Buccaneers went, but I don't mind adding an addition to the offense with Ibuka, who is one of the better receivers out of this class, in my opinion. I kind of had Golden over Ibuka, and I think you were opposite. You had Ibuka over Golden. But after Tet, I think it was a toss-up. They go and take him. I liked it. I like the pick.
I agree. And then, like I said, before the quarterbacks, I have a feeling that, like me, you're going to be a big fan of this pick, and maybe I'm wrong, so we'll see. But Omarion Hampton goes to the LA Chargers, Noah. Here's my thought process on this. For the Harbaugh system and the way that he drafts and constructs his team, this is the same guy who last year took Joe Alt over Malik Neighbors, okay? So for this first-round pick, for him to say, that's our running back, that's the guy I want in the backfield, that's who I want paired with Najee Harris, That to me is why I'm so excited about him, because if you have kind of the Harbaugh approval as a skill position player to be taking over either a pass rusher, a offensive lineman, or another position that's not skill, he sees something in you that the casual NFL seer would not see. You agree with me on that, or you think that this was a bad pick?
I agree with your take on Harbaugh, but I do disagree with the selection of Hampton. Only reason, Gage, is because we see it in good offenses that there's a power back like a David Montgomery, and there's a scat back like Jahmyr Gibbs, and that's what the NFL's going to is a two back system. But I think you have a lot of the same qualities in the back. You did point out that he is younger. Hampton is younger. He's going to be more explosive than Najee, kind of a big play hitter. But I think they are very similar, so I don't think the schemes change enough when they're in the games. I don't think, like, if Najee's in first and second down, Hampton's not really your third down back, in my opinion, and same vice versa, whichever way you go with it. I think you got the same quality of back. I think Hampton will probably end up getting more reps than Najee will, because if you're going to spend a first round pick on him, I think he has to soak up a lot of the time. But I just think they're very similar in who they are as players and how they run the football. I mean, Hampton is a very, very good running back. Watching his highlights last night with defensive backs and safeties are scared to come downhill on this guy. Like, he is big. NFL, obviously a more physical game, so you're going to get some guys that will come up and rough him up when he breaks that line of scrimmage. But I just think it's very similar in the two backs and how they run the football. I don't mind the pick because, like you said, Harbaugh, I'm going to trust in Harbaugh. But just philosophy-wise, to me, if they were going to take a back there, I would have rather seen them take a Judkins or a Henderson, kind of more of a scat back type.
Yeah, I completely understand it, and you could have potentially traded out of that spot and moved down if you wanted to take a Judkins early in the second round, because we saw the Giants move into the first round and take Dart there, which we'll talk about. Pittsburgh Steelers take Derek Harmon, who will forever be remembered by Steeler Nation and a lot of NFL fans as probably a forgotten first-round pick in this, because everybody was so hindsighted on Shedeur Sanders. I don't understand them passing on quarterback, but I mean, as we're still watching the draft here unfold, Shedeur is available here in round 3. So there's something that happened with his draft process leading up. And in my opinion, it probably has to do with the fact that he didn't throw at the combine. He, I believe, only had the one private workout with the Giants where he threw. A lot of teams were asking him to come in and throw for a workout, and he didn't do it. On top of the fact where you saw some concerns about, like, the way that it was worded that I saw was he felt he approached these meetings as if he was being recruited by the NFL team, when it's the exact opposite. NFL teams are choosing to invest a draft pick in you, a franchise, you know what I mean? Especially at that quarterback spot. So I completely understand why Pittsburgh passes on this, a place where, for the most part, like, Big Ben had that serious allegation a while ago, but their quarterbacks have been pretty quiet for the most part. It's a low maintenance type of city in terms of football, in my opinion, when it comes to that quarterback position. Russell Wilson, Kenny Pickett, like. So would you have taken Shedeur in that spot, or are you a fan of ultimately wiping that out and potentially Aaron Rodgers still in play? Like, what are you thinking?
The more I watch, I think Aaron Rodgers is in play, because there's no way the Steelers are going into the season running out Mason Rudolph as their starter. So Aaron Rodgers has to be in play in Pittsburgh. And like you said, we're watching a draft unfold. He's still not off the board, right? So it's kind of interesting to see where Shedeur will end up. I'm assuming he will be drafted sometime this week,
Maybe
making the third round, but we don't know. But just looking at it at the draft pick itself, where you take Harmon, I think it's perfect in the sense you have Hayward, who's a veteran. He's going to be able to set under him, and he's gonna learn some of those good qualities that Hayward has. There's going to be a kind of like a hand of the stick over to Harmon. So I don't mind the pick. And like I said, the Steelers had to know that he would be there later if they wanted to go that route, because I don't think any team has fully said, no, we're not going Shedeur. Any team that is quarterback needy. So they had to know that he would be there later. So either he knew the Browns or the Giants weren't interested at all. And some of these other teams don't have any interest in Shedeur. So I think it was actually pretty solid by the Steelers to stake out and go past him.
And then we see the New York Giants give up 2 third-round picks basically in their second to move back into 25, where the Houston Texans were picking, to take Jackson Dart. And I got pretty strong feelings towards this because, like I said this to you earlier, right? If you are not a quarterback like Cam Ward or somebody that is stepping in from day one, Caleb Williams, Jaden Daniels, even Drake May, he's kind of an outlier when I say this, but if you're not stepping in day one to be your starting quarterback on your team, you are deemed a project quarterback. It means that there are things that still need to be developed for you to touch the NFL field and be the starting caliber level that your team is drafting you to be. So why in the world would a team with a coach who's on the hot seat, a GM who necessarily hasn't put together the best team, they were 3-14 last year or whatever it was, trade up to draft a project quarterback? When you say that out loud, it makes zero sense. It makes no sense. On top of the fact, Noah, I don't know if you got to see the Gruden episode that he did with Jackson Dart, the famous clip where the snap and everything, where he's sitting there clapping his hands, stuff like that. I get it. There's arm talent. He can spin it. I just never bought the hype. I don't know. He had good games against Georgia, a couple other prolific SEC schools there, but I don't know, man. I just don't see it. I don't see it.
Yeah, I agree, Gage. And the thing is, for me, outside of I'm not going to beat a dead horse in any sense, but the thing is, for me, when you look back at where the Texans got the draft pick, so the 34th pick, so second round, the second pick, that was the Giants, right? Why in the world would you trade up for them when you have the Falcons, the Ravens, the Lions,
Chiefs, Eagles, anybody picking in the back end of the first round? Washington have your franchise quarterback. I mean,
and it baffles me. It's like, why move up when there is no need to? right?
Unless another team that it moves back in, maybe Pittsburgh, maybe another team, the Saints, obviously heavily tied to Dart leading up to the draft process. That's the only thing I can think of. But I mean, I agree with you, man. This isn't even a quarterback caliber player where you trade up for, in my opinion. I don't know. I don't see it. I gave this like a F plus, and I only gave it a plus because of you didn't have to give up a ton for a quarterback, 2/3. But man, I just think this will ultimately be the pick that gets Shane and Dable fired. I really do, because Russell Wilson didn't pan out in Pittsburgh, who is a better run franchise, better team overall. So what makes you think that he's going to pan out with the Giants? And then when he doesn't work out, who are you turning to? Jameis Winston will probably be a cut candidate come camp time, so you're turning to Jackson Dart. I don't know.
Yeah, and like you said too, I mean, you go Abdul early, so that's great, and then you go ahead and mess. You're more than one player away from being a solid roster, right? So the more draft capital you have, the better off you are. If you wanted Dart back where you were sitting, I think you're able to get him, and then you still keep your other second or your other third round picks, because I think they had 2 third round picks. Those are easy ways to improve your team to make a more, I guess, say, in-depth roster where you can play, pick up multiple positions. It just didn't make much sense for me, Gage.
And another thing that didn't make a ton of sense, the Atlanta Falcons have no idea what they're doing. They have no clue how to run a football team. And this dates back to last year. I will speed run through this real quick. You give Kirk Cousins, however many millions of dollars it was, 200 something, and ultimately 30 days later take Michael Penix with the 8th overall pick, I believe it was, somewhere up there in the top 10. This year, you take Jalen Walker, phenomenal pick at 15. Absolutely agree with that. One of my favorite players in the draft. Then pick 26 comes around. The LA Rams, who I really believe planned on taking a player in day one of the draft. They knocked it out of the park last year with Jared Verse. So I fully believe that they were going to take a player this year. I think Atlanta picks up the phone and dials the LA Rams and says, hey, we'll give you our first round pick next year and, a couple more other picks to get in this spot right here. And, Sean McVay and GM there in LA are looking at each other like, sure, yeah, we'll head back to the second round. That's fine. We'll pick up your future first round pick that'll probably be top 17 next year, top 15 like it is this year. Because what the hell does a full season of Michael Penix look like? We don't know yet. And they trade in to take James Pierce, edge out of Tennessee, who's a good player. But here, I'm going to make this a new rule of thumb for me. Just say it out loud and listen to what it sounds like. Trade a future first-round pick for a guy who didn't have a ton of production in college, character concerns, and talks about his size. He's a little undersized as an edge rusher. Say that out loud. What warrants you to trade a future first-round pick
Trade up.
to move up to 26 in the draft in a deep edge class? They could have, what we saw tonight, they could have got Mike Green, Donovan Ezeraku in the second round.
Yeah, and that's what's like Jalen Walker, that pick, I was like, okay, that's solid. They're building something, right? And then this happens, and it's like, why do you do that? Because you're like, this is another team where you're not just one piece away from being a Super Bowl or even a division, champion or contender. So I don't really understand that pick in itself. The Falcons, like you said, that there's so many questions.
They have no clue, man. They have no clue what they're doing.
So little pass rush in Atlanta, and I think they're trying to fix it all at once. And it's something that's kind of rough to do because there's only so many prospects that come out. And the thing is, if you get a guy in the second round, you can pass him for being a rotational edge rusher, where if you're bumping up in the draft, this guy has to produce first year for it to be worth what you just gave.
I agree, man. It was truly mind-boggling to me. Jalen Milroe picked by the Seattle Seahawks right now, so just throwing that out there. One of the first quarterbacks here in the third round, other than Tyler Shaw, to get picked. Talk about it in the next video. But no, we'll do this before we wrap things up with the Eagles and Chiefs, who obviously dominate the draft year in, year out for the most part. I thought two phenomenal picks. I'll give you a chance to talk about your guy, Matthew Golden, to Green Bay. Real quick, I just want to say one of my just stellar picks. Good teams simply draft good players. Malachi Starks, 27 to the Baltimore Ravens. It frees up one of the best safeties in the NFL, Kyle Hamilton, to do whatever the hell he wants, line up wherever the hell he wants, and simply just be a good football player from sideline to sideline. And you get Malachi Starks, the best safety in this draft, to sit around in the back half of that defense and just lurk and be a true playmaker. Like I said, it's not hard. Good teams draft good players at good value.
Yeah, and that's the thing, that Starks just fits everything they need in the sense of letting Hamilton roll, and they literally get the best safety in the draft. It's like you said, good teams don't miss. Rolling into what you were saying there with Golden, I think we have different opinions on this, so it'll be kind of interesting to get into. I love that the Packers finally got out of their little
so did their fans, man.
Shell.
Yeah, so did their fans. It went crazy.
They finally select a receiver. How many years did Aaron Rodgers ask for this? Jordan Love, however, he gets better treatment than Aaron Rodgers. They finally go out and get a wide receiver in the first round. They hadn't did that since 2002, I believe.
Yeah.
So we were kind of different in the sense of liking the pick or not liking the pick. I like the pick because you're showing effort to your quarterback, who obviously needs a little bit of help. And additionally, I was higher on Golden than you were. I think Golden, when you watch down the stretch, every time Texas needed a big play, Golden was the guy they went to. So I like the ability. I think people question about his route running, but I think he's able to get open more. I think he instantly becomes the best receiver on that team, and I think he will be a phenomenal fantasy wide receiver this year, because I think he'll get a lot of targets. And Love and him will be Love and Golden will have a connection, much similar to what you saw with Trevor Lawrence and Brian Thomas this past year.
I do hope it pans out for Golden. And I think the more I sit down and think about it and look at it, there's an avenue for him to be a true superstar at wide receiver in this league. I really do think that. I just got to see it first. That's it. I guess when I say that, this is what I mean. This kick, I don't. In my opinion, it wouldn't be Reed or Dobbs. So in this case, Watson. You gotta get Watson out of this wide receiver just rotation in general. You gotta get one of these guys who fit the similar mold as a speed kind of vertical threat receiver. It's over. That project is over because it hasn't worked, and you haven't been getting the wide receiver production that you want. I think Jaden Reed is a good receiver. I think Dobbs is an underrated receiver, and I hope Golden can finally unlock that room. Maybe this is the guy they need. Maybe I was a little bullish when they first made the pick. Maybe this is who they need to open up other guys as well. So I completely understand it. It's crazy to look back at the first-round picks the Packers have made in recent years. Jordan Morgan, offensive tackle, didn't pan out to be much. Lucas Van Ness, Devontae Waddick, Quay Walker, Eric Stokes, all defense. Jordan Love in 2020. Before that, Darnell Savage, defense. Rashawn Gary, defense. Jair Alexander, defense. Kenny Clark in 2016, defense. HaHa Clinton Dix. It is crazy to see how much every year they go defense in the first round. So for them to take a wide receiver where they host the draft, I'm sure there was a lot of beer, a lot of cheese curds thrown in the air there in Wisconsin when that pick was made.
Oh, definitely. And like I said, when you look at it in a sense of like they had some late round success with Devontae Adams, and maybe that was kind of their what they put their hat on, and they were just thinking, you don't have to spend that first round pick on the receiver position. But like I said, just getting your roster better in the sense of, okay, now you have an option that you can go to day in, day out. And I think that's what is the problem. Jaden Reed, we saw flashes these past years of being like, a top quality receiver in the NFL. And then the next game, he comes out with 2 receptions for -3 yards. And it's like, how in the hell did that happen? But like you said, maybe the addition of Golden frees up some of these other receivers. You said you wanted to cover the Eagles and the Chiefs here at the end, or where were you going at?
Yeah, we'll wrap this up here. We're about 34 minutes. We'll wrap this up with this. I just like I talked about with the Ravens, man. Howie Roseman does it every single year. Jahad Campbell pre-shoulder, had the shoulder injury concerns, ultimately knocks him all the way down here. But when playing, is just like every other defensive player that Philadelphia drafts, a game wrecker, a game changer. So now he walks into a defense with Jordan Davis, Jalen Carter. I'm not even going to name it because you saw what it did in the Super Bowl. You add on to that room, that's absolutely crazy to me. They're going to be good. They're going to be back in the Super Bowl probably, in my opinion. They're in the NFC. And then I thought the Chiefs got arguably tackle 2 in the entire draft class. I would give Campbell 1, and then it's kind of, for me, Josh Simmons and Mimbu were kind of a toss-up. Simmons, when healthy, pre-ACL injury, looked like the best tackle in the entire draft class ahead of Will Campbell. So Veach obviously saw enough in the Super Bowl, we'll put it like that, to warrant Simmons there at 32. I wonder, as a Chiefs fan, if this is a pick for the future or if they're going to find a way to get him in the lineup immediately and as quick as they can.
Yeah, just outside of a Chiefs fan perspective of yours, I think they do need to get him in the lineup as quick as they can because of what we saw in the Super Bowl last year, and I think he can produce at the level of an NFL starter pretty quickly. Just to wrap this up, Gage, who is your winner of the night and who is your loser of the night there in the first round?
It's funny to me because I've yet to really think about it, but for me, I think winner, I mean, I hate to say it, Noah, but it's Baltimore and Philadelphia. I think at the back end of the first round in a draft class where maybe there were some guys that went a little high, like Shamar Stewart, 17. That was a little rich for me. Kenneth Grant, 13. I thought Jahad Campbell, Simmons, even, but I don't necessarily call Chiefs a winner until we see what they do with Simmons. But Starks at 27, Jahad Campbell at 31 was just unbelievable value to me. They'll be back in the playoffs ultimately again, so that deems winner status already. And then a loser, I just said it out loud, and it sounds like it may be him. I kind of want to say Cincinnati, Noah. I think going into the draft, you needed a true game changer on defense, okay? So whether that was edge, linebacker, or secondary, you needed somebody to change the game on defense. I believe Malachi Starks could have done it for you from the safety position. I believe Jahad Campbell could have done it for you at the linebacking position. I believe that maybe even a couple other edge rushers other than Shamar Stewart could have done it. But you take a guy who had, I believe it was 3 or 4 sacks in 3 years or whatever it was, and you draft him solely based off of his combine RAS relatively athletic score. That's what you draft him off of. For a team who severely struggled on the defensive side of the ball, statistically, you draft a guy who didn't have very good stats. What? Loser to me. That one didn't make a ton of sense.
Just to not waste any time here, that is definitely my loser of the first round draft. Sorry, Mason Houfen there. He's a little bit more optimistic than us on that pick. But my winner, and it's going to be kind of, I guess, a lame winner. The Browns. You trade back, you pick up more assets for your team in draft capital, and then you go ahead and get a solid, probably 10-year guy, locking down the defensive tackle position, and hopefully to stay in Cleveland if they can keep him there. Just another addition to your defense that is always pretty solid.
Yeah, great. I really liked what Cleveland did. Passing on Travis Hunter and Abdul is definitely hard, but pick up that extra first, couple other extra picks too, which in this draft they've done a tremendous job of using them. And Noah, speaking of the Devil, as we're talking about this, the Cleveland Browns just picked 94 in round 3. Dylan Gabriel, quarterback out of Oregon, leaving Shadur on the board. Dylan Gabriel, Milroe, Tyler Shaw, a couple other quarterbacks have gone ahead of Shadur. That's insanity to me, which we'll probably have to talk about here real quick after. But, hey, man, I appreciate you coming back. I think the people have been missing you. Everybody thought you were dead, so glad to see you chip in here on the draft talk. I know from your side of things, you're not too big into the speculation and mock drafts and stuff like that. You're all business, suit and tie. You need to see it on paper, and then you form your opinion. So, brother, it's always good talking football with you. You know that. So, appreciate you guys watching as always, and we'll be at it, I'm sure, leading up. Football season's coming around, man. So, I can't wait.